Good morning, everybody. If this isn't going to keep me here, I don't know what will. And until now, they were both on the bed next to me. And I was just kind of, I had my hand on them and I was just feeling their energy. And I think Agita is under the bed. I think it's D2. And the dreams were pretty powerful. They were, they're about wanting to go back to that world. In one, there was a woman who was kind of trying to hold, and it was actually it was taking place in a classroom, but the pull was very strong. I mean, literally, I think she sort of grabbed onto me and wanted me to keep me there and party, and I tried to leave, and I think I managed to. Anyway, we'll keep you posted. Bye for now. And there's Agita. I thought she was under the bed, but she's in the closet. And both of the babies were here, but now one's got up and he's there. And I think this is actually one of the most important first steps back. Just being here with the kids in the morning and feeling the energy. And this is what I am struggling to come back to. This is my ordinary world, and this is what keeps me here. Anyway, one step at a time. Bye for now. Later, and I managed to feed the kids, but dry and wet food. It was quite a bit of an effort, as much as I love feeding them and as much as I love them, actually just opening the can and getting up and doing all of that. Quite a bit of an effort, but of course I will do it, and I did do it, and I will do it again, and it's what's bringing me back. So and then I had a couple of very nice, and there's one of the babies there, and where's the other baby? Okay, found him. He was hiding. So one of the babies there, and Agita here. So even doing this little family count thing is bringing me back to my usual routines. When the pull was the strongest and I was kind of in that other world, I mean, I still loved my kids. That never wavered, but it was just, I hesitate to admit this, but even at times it was like, oh, they're just cats, they'll be okay. And I can't, most humans would probably agree with that. As long as you've left food and water, that's fine, they'll be fine. But, they're not just cats to me. They're my children. And for me to have actually even fleetingly thought of them as cats and, well, yeah, they'll be okay, they got food and water. That to me is abhorrent. That is, that is possession by something that's not me, not the me I want to be. And that's the other model. When I was ranting yesterday, the model I kind of left out. Well, the whole werewolf dragon thing, but that was really a bit, a metaphor, but it was a bit of possession model, which is what this thing really is like. When you're in the grip of it, and you remember I talk about Burroughs all the time, William S. Burroughs, the one who killed his wife, and then when he was on heroin. But he actually literally believed that his addiction was a possession by an evil spirit that took him over after he killed his wife. So and he did like various, spiritual shit to get rid of the demon. At one point he did, and I don't remember how now. I've read the various biographies, but that, again, I don't take this literally. This is a metaphor, but that's how possessed I was. That I actually thought of my kids as cats. When, to me, they are kids. And if I don't think of them as kids, then that's something very wrong in my world. And I did hear from my friend. Okay, one of the babies there. Agita here. And, I told you it was an effort feeding the kids. It's going to be even more of an effort feeding myself because I think we're going out and I'm dressed and everything. But going out is a bit of an effort. Hello, everybody. There's Agita. There are the babies. And I came back about 10 minutes ago. And I just sat here on this, because I brought up my, I had a Tim Hortons
coffee on the way back, muffins. So I had that. And I just had it at the dining table, and then I found that I couldn't get up. Okay. As usual, I don't like to provide too many details here. Anonymity and all that other stuff. Legal issues and privacy issues and so on. So, but I will say, went on another excursion last night, and once that door is opened, it's very. That was like 1, 2, 3 within 4 days or 5 days. So, and I went again. Each time I go a little deeper into shadow, and uncovering things about myself and about others too, So, and I'm not going to say where, when, what, who, whatever, but I'll just say I sort of, I poked my head down into the rabbit hole, and I was offered another rabbit hole, or someone mistakenly thought that that was the rabbit hole for me, and one that you cannot return from, supposedly. Which I think is bullshit anyway. There's nothing that you can't return from eventually. But so anyway, he or she offered, or misinterpreted the rabbit hole that he or she thought I needed. She thought I needed to be, in to go down. But it was a rough night. It was like a very, and it ended up being a toxic environment, and I did quite a lot of substances, and, there were the usual unspeakable horrors and unimaginable delights. And the unimaginable delights were a little fewer this time, a little bit more of the unspeakable horrors. So, and that whole people who really sincerely believe that they know better than everyone else, that they're right, everyone else is wrong, and because they have logic on their side or they have whatever and they have superior brain power, they really annoy me, So it was not. And then when I'm in that state, I'm very different too. I'm not the nutty professor that you see here. I'm the dusty dumpster rodent weasel. And I'm regressed, and I become non-verbal. Very hard for me to speak. So all of that shit happened, and I just managed to stay all night. But at least by the time I left, in the almost afternoon. By the time I left. Yeah, it was early afternoon. By the time I left, I was able to, to drive. I'd come down, and so that part was good. And I just stopped to get my muffin and coffee and came home to the kids. Now we're going to have to talk about this in more detail later, but I think that this, the excursions, the journeys to the underworld have been getting darker. This has been happening all along, and each time I go a little further down, and so it's harder to come back. And this last series, so the 3 binges since my first relapse last week, so after 96 days, just went completely. It's 4, I think. Yeah, 4. 4 in 6 days, something like that. So, and this was probably in some ways the worst yet. I mean, I wasn't, in as much danger, I think, as I was in previous. The one where I was robbed, earlier this year and stuff like that. This one, it was just dealing more and more with shadowy stuff and more substances and varieties and mixing them, all of that stuff. So it was, I just managed barely, and the environment got very toxic. I don't think it was dangerous for me as such, but it was not good, and so I and I'm in my diminished state. When I'm in the underground, very difficult for me to deal with conflict and stuff. So I managed to just walk away. That was pretty difficult, but I did manage to walk away, and I was able to drive by then, and I've come home to the kids. So let's just hope this, I don't know. I don't even want to say, because, but I think this last one was pretty bad, all four, I mean, taken together, they were worse than before, So, and deeper, more substances, And the Nutty Professor, I've brought this up in much previous podcasts, but the Nutty Professor is now, into the crazy professor territory, at least, when the addiction is concerned, and possibly even, bordering on the psycho professor. So it's time to reel back, because once the Nutty Professor goes psycho, it's one of those very, very, very hard to come back to ordinary world in any shape or form. So, again, circumstances kind of worked in my favor. If it had been better, if I had been enjoying myself and everything had been going well last night, I would have been in more danger of binging again. But since it was pretty awful, I'm just like, okay, let's just, ordinary world is better than this shit. And I think I've learned pretty much all I need to learn from whatever growth came out of those excursions. I've learned. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen again, because they were so, deep into shadow, and there were the unimaginable delights, and there's a connection with people, and there's a thing there that, I kind of don't get from my friends. It's a whole different kind of, thing, So yes, the pull will still be there, and it's going to get strong again, and I can't guarantee that I won't go back there, I can't guarantee it, So, but for now, because it got pretty hairy, and it was not pleasant. Many of them are not really pleasant anyway, So I'm just like, okay, I just gotta get home, kids, and then we'll sort it out day by day, and the only way now, there's no other way I can see out of this. The only possible path I have back to the ordinary world is to write, So, and I haven't written a word, not even journal entries, in a week. So for me, that's really something. I write 6-7 pages a day, type single space. For me to not write for 7 days, but then I was kind of, I was in it, whatever it is. And, one of the people that I was talking to, the kind of, supposedly more intelligent than everyone else person, who has logic and considers all the different angles. But then the angle that he comes up with is, of course, the right one. But he was very critical. I did mention my she. I did mention my analyst's, thing about that whole it thing, if you let go of it, it will let go of you. And he's like going, yes, there could be something in it. It could come from another universe. It could come from, the collective unconscious. Even though he didn't use that word, he's got some other word for that. He or she. So that, or it could just be nonsense. Just, leftover substance stuff, and tiredness, and, just hearing something. And then he or she goes into this whole thing about what voices are and where they take place, and the nature of hallucinations and all of that shit, So as I said, It's not that he or she is not intelligent, They are, and they are very analytic and all of that stuff. But just, I have met people like that before, and I personally find them a bit boring. They really, really think there are so many steps ahead of everyone else. So, which they may be, but you don't have to you don't have to rub it in everyone's faces all the time. And the nutty professor, I mean, when I'm not subdued and, regress to the level of a 1-year-old, the nutty professor, can handle logic, and can analyze too. So, I'm out of it, out of it. And that was a pretty bad situation. I mean, I won't talk about it more here, but I will write about it. The way that those people behaved. I don't really owe them anything. So I will write. Changing the names and all of that stuff. And for now, I'm not publishing it. Write for myself. And this person is like questioning the podcast. Why do you do them? What's the point of them? What's the end goal? What's the what? I'm like going. It's my expression. It's my connection. And if and I do my podcast for 3 odd. I didn't even bother at the time. I couldn't really articulate, not really worth bothering with people who are so condescending. But but I've mentioned in podcasts that I have 3 potential audiences for my podcast, and one is the people in that underworld, in that underground, who aren't turning back, which is basically people. Almost all the people I encounter. So the non-turning back strugglers, as I call them. The second group is the turning back strugglers, the ones who want to turn back for some, for various reasons. And for me, of course, my kids, my friends, wanting to publish all of that stuff. So, and then the third group of people is they're interesting stories for people who don't have addiction and don't know about that underworld, and don't know how compulsive it is, and the type of, and that's the whole thing. The people that I meet, one has an impression of people who do substances often, this kind of stereotype. It's not, stereotype is just a stereotype. I've met all kinds of people, and for the most part, I have had, I've only been robbed a couple of times and beaten up, but over 6.5 years, and then you walk into, because, there's a lot of factors going on in there. So you walk into situations like, there's toxic environments and stuff like that. Is anything that is illegal and under the radar and all of that stuff, and and people who consider themselves nonconformists and put down traditional society and have no desire to return to the ordinary world. So there's going to be some issues there. So. All of that shit, and I just barely made it back. I just got back now a few minutes ago, and I'm exhausted. I'm just exhausted, and I'm like, because of all of the, the substances, obviously, the lack of sleep, obviously, the not eating properly, obviously, and then on top of it, having to deal with, drama queens and all that shit, I'm just like, no, I'm like, I just, for the reason that I haven't, been in an actual relationship for many, many, many years, and no intention of actually going into one now, so we've got all kinds of stuff going on, but good news, bad news, whatever. I'm back again. I go very, very deep into these things, and then I somehow manage to get home safely, which is somewhat against the odds. Anyway, I'm home, with my kids, and I think I mention this in the previous footage, but that's the most alarming thing about this latest round, because at times, as much as I love the kids and I see them as kids, not as cats, not as pets, but as much as I love my kids, there were times when I was, on my binge or about to head out, and I'm like going, yeah, they'll be fine. They're just cats. I'll put water and food, and if I start thinking like that, that's the end of me and everything that I cherish and everything that I believe in. Those are my beliefs, So because these are my family. I mean, other people may just say, oh, they're cats, but they're not. They're family. My own local human relatives have pretty much abandoned me, and I've cut off ties with all other family, And as I said, my parents are sort of an exception, and they're in India, and they're not coming back, and I'm not going there, so we talk on the phone once a week. But so that's a whole different thing. So these are my family, and then I have my 5 friends, So that's it. And the whole thing about the kids being my family. The at least 2 of my friends, they get it completely, because they are cat people, cat rescuers. So then the one out of Province keeps going, you got to stop this, because otherwise, your kids are going to become orphans, So, that's the most persuasive argument anyone can make at this point. So, and then, there are people like the one I encountered last night, and he was going, oh, it's not an addiction, and it's all the left-wing government, and this and that, and, big fans of Peterson, and fucking Peterson keeps coming up, and this person's like, I don't understand why. I just don't understand why this anti Peterson, feelings, because he tells the truth, and he's standing up for rights. I don't know, everything's messed up, the whole left-right thing, as I've said a few times now, pairs of opposites, So the nutty professor is on a different path, and I don't see my path as being any less valid than Peterson's. I mean, I'm also a former psych prof. I'm from a, Jungian background, and I'm now a podcaster. So why should his views and perspectives and what he has to say be so much better than what I have to say? And what I have to say is only based on my, I've used theoretical frameworks of Freud and Jung and Campbell and mythology and, Odysseus and all of that stuff. But my stuff is based on my own personal experience. Confronting shadow and confronting anima and all of that stuff, unveiling anima, whatever it is. So it's based on my experience, and it's difficult experience to actually confront your own shadow and go into, this kind of, underworld aspects, both, in society and of oneself. So, I'm not, at the time, I don't even bother arguing, because, you can't argue with people like that. And besides which, it's very hard for me to speak when I'm on top of everything else. But even if I was able to, I probably wouldn't bother. It's not worth it, So, I'm back, Peterson's name keeps coming up, Oh, craziness, So anyway, well, as I said, I think I was veering on the crazy, possibly even psycho. So the goal now is for the nutty professor to return to, the normal state of his, nuttiness. So, and And the first step on this, I just came, well, 10, 15 minutes ago. I got to have a shower, and then I just got to spend some time with the kids, and relax. And then we'll try to come down. I'm already down, in terms of the actual substance. But I need to kind of bring myself back into this world, into this, environment, into this my safe space. This is the Nutty Professor's safe space, with his own family, So which I jeopardize, and I know that every time I go on one of those things, But it's as I've said, it's like a compulsion. It's like a possession. Keep coming back to William S. Burroughs. He really believed that his addiction was a possession by an evil spirit. And he did, exorcisms and seances and all that shit. What I might do is, in the next footage, just select a tarot card. That's as far as the Nutty Professor will go, and then just day by day, as usual. But the big difference now is I've got to write. If I don't write about these experiences and eventually share them, then they were for naught, That's for me, this, the something is, I've been given the opportunity to go to that world and to, when I'm there, I'm a complete addict. I think like an addict. I behave like an addict. I won't leave until I've finished everything that I can get and do. And, so, even if I'm not doing it every day, it's been stepping up 4 times in 6 days. That's not good, and it's it's expensive and it's exhausting. And I really believe I have nothing more to learn or to share about that world. I've got so much information. Some of the manuscripts are written, and the rest of this latest round, this is probably the most interesting yet from some perspectives. So this is the one that I have to really write about, and then we'll see about publishing later, Anyway, bye for now, I'm back, I don't know. So I guess today will be day one clear, I will make it, I've gone so far down and it was so bad and I was so exhausted that, that not being able to return when one wants to return, that to me is the unspeakable horror. The unspeakable horror is that I'd rather be home with my kids and safe and exchanging emails and texts with my friends, with my actual friends, with my, my civilian friends. And I can't. I just, compulsively. Once you're there, it's so difficult to return. You don't want to return, So we're going to come up with a new metaphor. I'm just not sure what yet. So anyway, from the 4 of us, 3 kids and myself, Agita, Elsie, and Finn, and the crazy professor who is trying desperately to go back to nutty, merely nutty. I think I can make it. I've done this before. Do it again. Exhausting. Bye for now. Hello, everybody. It's a few hours later, and Agita is there, and one of the babies is there, and had to search a bit, but the other baby's there. Just found him, there, hiding spot. Now, it's a few hours later, and just been exhausted, and just sitting here and processing this latest excursion to the underworld, and the denizens of the underworld. It's pretty awful people, and like I said before, you can't stereotype because most of the encounters that I've had in that world have been fairly positive, except for being beaten up and robbed a couple of times, and also because of what happens to me when I'm in that world. Yes, I do sometimes get taken advantage of and looked down on because I'm not the usual nutty professor self. I can barely put two words together, So so I'm kind of used to that. But this situation wasn't dangerous as such. But these people that I was amongst and partying with reminded me of my own, the dynamics. It reminded me of my own parents, And I'm like going, I spent 60 years in that shit, I'm like, when I'm going to party, I don't want to be put in the middle again of this shit again. So, it was pretty awful, At least I got out, but that goes to show how strong the pull of the substances, and also other things which I don't really talk about in these podcasts. But that's a very, very strong pull. It's very primordial, and that whole regression, much earlier stage of psychosexual development, so pre-ego, as it were. So anyway, I mean, the important thing is I got out. I managed to get out in spite of the very strong pull, Now, and this is, I'm kind of grateful for them being, unpleasant, because otherwise I wouldn't, it would have been much harder for me to leave, So now I managed to get home, but this has been the 4 binges together over 6 days. Has been, it's been darker than before. They're each progressive, series of binges is getting worse and worse, So after the 95 days, it was just, the first one was sort of okay, even though, anyway, I don't want to talk about all of that now. I will write all the details I have to for myself, and very interesting stories, very interesting dynamics, and what the people think of me, and they do sort of miscategorize, and everybody, people who think that they're so much more aware than, everybody else usually aren't. I think it was the case here too. But anyway, so Peterson's shit, and I saw the dynamics yesterday. This person was taking a very, chauvinistic, condescending attitude towards, women, and the John Gray sort of. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. They're really, watered down, traditional. Of course, it goes with Peterson and his views. And it's just to me a little disgusting, and Anyway, never mind. Enough of Peterson. I do want to talk about him. He keeps coming up, He keeps coming up in my things. And when I meet somebody in that world who is supposedly trans and loves Peterson, I'm like, something is very wrong with this picture, So I don't know, whatever, like I said, I've consider myself beyond politics now. But, when annoying people, between the two, I mean, to me, they're about the same at this point, the left and the right. They're both assholes. But, I think the right is more assholey, and they're just so self, they consider themselves rebels, and they consider, they think that they are right and they know fucking everything, fuck the right, So anyway, I don't know. I'm like, just, well, fuck the left too, but fuck the middle, fuck everything, So anyway, so that's where we are. This is the mood that the nutty professor has come back in, But I think it's a good mood to be in because, it's just left such a bad taste in my mouth, that even for the supposed unimaginable delights, I don't think I want to go back, And in a way, being thrust into a dysfunctional, almost family type, situation with people bickering and accusing each other of shit, and and as I said, it reminded me a lot of my parents. So that puts that's to me, that's worse than an unspeakable horror. That's okay. I've seen some real unspeakable horrors too, but this was probably one of the worst. all I can say is I'm back for now. I got back, but it's been very hard since I got back because I went so deep this time. Lots of substances and mixing. Oh, that's always the what gets you the mixing parts. So here I am. I got back. I consider myself lucky. I'm not lucky. I mean, yeah, there is. I got myself out of it. You know. So I'm back. And that was a pretty bad situation. So I'm back though, and I'm with the kids, and every little thing. I mean, I came home and it was an effort to clear the litter boxes and give them fresh water and put dry food. I haven't got the energy right now to do the wet food. But, that goes to show what kind of space I'm in. But I did do the other things, the wet food, the dry food and the litter box and the water. And I just collapsed here. I took a shower and I collapsed here on my sofa. And I'm just gradually, I'm just like, oh, I'm back, I'm home, I'm ordinary world, the adventures, the psychonautic, and I had to explain this to the, Mr. Know-it-all, Mr. Ms. whatever, Know-it-all, about, the psychonauts, and she kind of go, oh, that's an interesting concept, but, in a condescending tone. People like that really piss me off, and yeah, it's typical of Peterson followers, Anyway, don't get me started on this shit, So I'm like going, look, I'm home, and you said, maybe I owe Peterson a word of thanks because it was this friggin' annoying Petersonian that that kind of put me off slithering for a while. I'm out of the snake pit now. That was a snake pit. I'm out of the snake pit now, partly thanks to Peterson. And and this person spouting, Peterson's bullshit, from the very vantage position that the left people are trying to protect. Everything's upside down, I don't even care. There's a reason I think I just, there's not an excuse to go slithering, but when you go slithering and you come up against the same shit, I'm like going, why even bother? So I'm like, anyway, for now it's okay. I mean, David's still going to be hard. Don't get me wrong. It's still going to be very hard, So anyway, it's baby steps this time. Kitten steps, Really, I've got to take this very, very slow and easy, I'm home, I'm safe, I'm in the other world, I'm, little things, I can, maybe eat a soup myself and feed the kids wet food later. And I don't think I can do I didn't sleep after all last night, like, I don't know how many nights in a row now, so I have to sleep tonight, Well, actually, I think I had a couple of nights sleep before last night, so at least I was staggering it, So, from one baby, two baby, and agita. And I think it's a very good sign that I don't think of them as cats anymore. It was briefly. It was only during the binge and the worst of it, and when I was in that world, I was like going, oh yeah, the cats will be okay, but yeah, they're not cats. Well, they are technically, but they're my children. I love them more than any humans in the universe. And they're my family. So I'm home and I'm fairly more intelligent than the supposed humans that I slithered with last night. Oh my God, what an ordeal! So anyway, I'm returning. I don't know how I'm going to do the rest of it, day by day. I don't know. You know what? Tomorrow, day after, I'll do another one. Progress report. But I will also, pick a tarot card. We haven't done that in a bit. So anyway, from the four of us, bye for now. See you next podcast.